AI and open source intelligence are transforming organizations' abilities to protect themselves from state-sponsored threats. To discuss these important innovations, please welcome Greg Levesque, CEO and co-founder of Strider Technologies, and Chip Usher, Senior Director for Intelligence at SCSP.
Well, welcome everybody. Terrific. Again, my name is Chip Usher. I'm the Senior Director for Intelligence here at SCSP, and I am super delighted to be hosting this session with Greg Levesque, who is the co-founder and CEO of an awesome open source intelligence company called Strider, who's also sponsoring part of our event over the next 3 days, so we really appreciate that. And we're here to talk about what Strider does and how open source intelligence really is transforming the business of intelligence. And so, Greg, why don't we dig in here?
Yeah.
And your organization got started in 2019, almost the same time as we did here at SCSP. What motivated you to start Strider, and what was the business problem that you all were trying to solve?
Yeah. I mean, it's thrilling to be here at SCSP, and thanks to Chip and team for all the support on the Strider side. But look, we started the company in 2019 really to reimagine what intelligence looks and operates like in an OSINT and AI era. And Eric and I, he's my identical twin brother, but we went on completely different career tracks. I went to DC, he went to New York, and 10 years after that, we had a pretty unique opportunity where I was supporting different US government programs, looking at how China, Russia, and other state actors were engaging in the commercial marketplace, right? Actually, how they were targeting companies and collecting intelligence and infiltrating supply chains. And it was a pretty unique vantage point. And coincidentally, my identical twin is in the Middle East working for a sovereign wealth fund and is literally in these G2G meetings, seeing it from a totally different angle, seeing it from the business side. And we would talk during these times and have conversations around what we were experiencing on the national security front, this change in orientation. I mean, China spends more money and deploys more resources targeting companies than they do foreign governments, right? I mean, that's just a reality of the era we're living in. And there's an information asymmetry, right, between what intelligence agencies have and their understanding of these networks and state actors and what companies have. And so the idea for Strider was really, how can we take the technology, the open source revolution wave that's coming, and develop capabilities and tools to, in essence, provide an intelligence agency-like capability to industry, to companies who, many of them now, I mean, we have 6 companies in the US with a market cap of $1 trillion or greater. NVIDIA's market cap is larger than the economy of the United Kingdom in relative value. That's not to say like comparative power like projection, but just in dollar on dollar basis. But they don't have access to that intelligence. And so that was really the genesis for Strider, is how do we bring this capability to industry in a way that allows corporate executives and decision makers to first understand the threat landscape, know where these state actors are in their organizations, in their supply chains, and then more importantly, be part of the national security solution in response to this.
So how do you see the threat landscape over the last couple of years evolving? And you talked about the need for businesses to have the intelligence services that your company provides. So tell us a little bit about how you do that. In particular, are you using AI and open source together?
Yeah, so I'll kind of start first with the threat landscape. Look, when I first started like down this career track, everything I did was manual. I mean, I'm a Mandarin speaker. We were trying to unravel these nation-state operations at scale, and certainly we had some technology to apply to it, but nothing like what AI is able to provide. And I'll get to that here in a minute. But in that period of time, I mean, we were uncovering nation-state espionage operations targeting companies. It seemed like onesie twosies, right? You'd find an incident here, you'd find an incident there. I mean, we all know what's happening with chips getting diffused into Shaheen drones and other places where it shouldn't live. But what has really hit home to me after doing Strider now for 6+ years is the problem is actually way worse. It's way worse. I mean, I was part of the U.S. Trade Rep 301 investigation team back in 2017 that looked at just the cost of China's IP theft on the U.S. economy. It was between $250 and $600 billion per year is what we kind of evaluated, right, as we looked at these cases, ran some econometrics analysis, and that's a staggering number, right? But I think it's worse than that. And what we're finding is every single company I've engaged across the Fortune 2000, here in the US, in Europe, in Japan, in Australia, they have all experienced the same thing, which is their employees are being recruited, their supply chains are being infiltrated. And by the way, I don't mean infiltrated through cyber means. I mean, their supply chains are literally being mapped out, and then state actors are figuring out where to go acquire an entity or to displace a subsidiary of a supplier, right? Like, this is the new game we're in today. So on the threat landscape side, I would say like that should be a big wake-up call. Nation states and their intelligence services are very actively engaged in industry today. That's just a fact. I'm talking the West, that's a construct that is unfamiliar. It's not something that we have really a muscle for at this state and time, but it's one that I think we need to develop. So that's where I would say on the threat landscape side, things are moving very quickly, and AI in particular is now, I think, the #1 target for these nation-state actors because we're in a race. We're in a race for AGI.
So you've been at this now for 6 years, like you said. How are we doing? And I would ask you to evaluate us as a nation, right? Not just government, not just our intelligence services, though I know you've got some views on that, but also companies. I mean, are they feeling the heat? Are they feeling motivated? Are they making the necessary investments in their defenses to prevent this sort of thing?
You know, I think it's gotten to a point, and I've seen this evolution. You know, when we first started the company, I would say there were, I certainly met like-minded people in corporate security teams, okay? People who kind of got the mission sense of it. They probably came out of government and they wanted to kind of drive that forward. But I wouldn't say that there was executive support across the board. So what I mean by that is like CEO boards on down. That has fundamentally changed now. So I think COVID was a psychological shift for a lot of corporate executives and a realization that, hey, like maybe this trading dynamic, this partnership, isn't what I thought it was. And that was, I think, just the opening that needed to happen. It was a mental one. Now what we are seeing is companies are building their own counterintelligence teams. This is a new phenomenon as well that is just beginning to pop up in the last 3 to 4 years. It did not exist when we first started the company in 2019. So we are now seeing full-blown counterintelligence teams being set up in companies. And the reason for that is because there is no connect with USG. So this intelligence sharing does not exist. And I'm not saying it should either. But the construct we have is that intelligence agencies support the government, and then they have a right to notify in certain instances. But they are not responsible for protecting the AI industry from nation-state threats and nation-state actors as of today.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're now seeing a whole cohort of companies. Strider is one of them that is popping up to try to actually tackle the problem and to provide new solutions. The exciting part about it is the solution space it's a parabolic growth. Part of it is because of AI, and I know we'll get to that here in a minute, but that is where, you know, from a business perspective, we see this really unique combination with open source intelligence and AI to, in essence, create agentic intelligence analysts that can collect, process, deliver this data and intelligence at scale. And you know, we're already developing that at Strider, and the outcomes have been profound, honestly. The agentic analysts we've already developed are beating our analysts. They're beating me.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it's happening in like, you know, 10 minutes. So things that used to take me 6 months to build out, we are doing now in a matter of minutes.
So you've already started to touch on this, but I'll start with a personal anecdote. So I worked at CIA for 30 years, and in the last couple of years of my time there, I worked on the Near East, and we started to see more and more visible evidence of Chinese techno-economic competition in that arena that was really highly consequential for the United States. our national security interests and our national economic interests, and certainly for our companies. But the traditional sources of collection that we had to rely on weren't really filling in the gaps to anyone's satisfaction, either in our building or at the White House. So I would ask you to reflect a moment on the last couple of years to think of some places or activities where open source has been delivering answers and insights that perhaps the intelligence community, based on your knowledge of how they operate and what they work with, was able to deliver.
Well, let's first say, like, what is open source? I mean, I think there is a little bit of a viewpoint that, like, it's the news. I mean, that's what it used to be.
Yeah.
Now open source is just anything that's you can collect publicly, right? And I'll draw the line of, like, don't hack, right? After that, it's now something different. But if it's publicly available, I'm going to call that open source for right now. So I mean, we're now at a point in time where you can create through open source digital twins of the global economy. I mean, I'm talking like down to the person level. You can create a digital twin of a company, all of the people who work there, their suppliers, their technology, the patents that they're filing, and you can then begin to cross-reference that with other nation-state actors. And so, this is I think the revolution in intelligence that's coming. It's not dissimilar to geospatial as well. If you guys think back to like Planet Labs, right? The unique advantage they developed was that they took an imagery of the Earth every single day. So it's not the most exquisite intelligence capability, but it covers the entirety of the Earth in one go. And then you can layer in more exquisite kit on top of it. This is where OSINT, I believe, is going. OSINT is going to be the foundational intelligence layer. And I think government is behind on it, full stop. They are way behind on it. And this is now getting deployed across industry where they can actually use open source intelligence to identify within their company where there are nation-state risks associated with their employee base. We can start to get alerts going on who might be targeted in certain companies. And we can illuminate these threat actor networks. And by networks, I don't mean like cyber networks. I mean actual like cells of people that are running these operations. So all of that digital exhaust, as I call it, is accessible. It's there. It's a question around, like, do you have the creativity and the access to go collect it, and then more importantly, process it. And that processing part is the barriers to entry to that are going to zero with AI. That's a really unique moment, I think, that we're in, is you don't need to be like me, a Mandarin speaker. As Malcolm Gladwell said, I did my 10,000 hours in the trench digging. That's what it used to take to be a subject matter expert on these things and be able to uncover what's happening. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah, and speed. I mean,
yeah.
the incredible thing that I've come to appreciate in my time since leaving CIA is how these insights can be arrived at an incredible rate of speed and at scale.
Agreed.
And it's commercially available information. I think you put your you hit the nail on the head a minute ago. And how should private sector companies such as yours kind of look to assist government, the intelligence community, or other parts of the U.S. government in better leveraging this commercially available information?
So, I mean, this is the way I think about it today, and I reserve the right to change my mind later, okay? But as of today, I think what I can see is there is industry can be the proving ground, so to speak. Industry can be the test bed. We can take on more of the risk of testing AI in these constructs in a way that maybe the U.S. government and the IC in particular just can't do. We also don't have the same bureaucratic or legal restrictions. And so that's kind of how I view it today, right? Like Strider, I fundamentally believe on the mission side of what we do is we're a test bed. I mean, we are, as I say, we're eating our own dog food. We're doing this in real time, and we're applying AI to our systems and our collection, and we're seeing what works and what doesn't. And I think that's the role that industry can play here, and to create different frameworks and models that perhaps could then eventually get, threaded into government programs or processes. But fundamentally, I'm at a place now where I think that elements of the intelligence community may go the same way as NASA. And you have a SpaceX, NASA type construct. I don't think that's far off.
You know, I think a lot of people who come from the intelligence community or who are working in this space in federal government tend to focus on data. They tend to focus on tools, right? You provide services, people are interested in the data and the analysis that you provide. But what I think is, in my view, going to be really transformative is learning some of the things you were just talking about how you organize your company to generate those insights. You know, at CIA, we spent oodles of time hiring these subject matter experts, people who could speak Mandarin or other languages or knew particular subject matter. And the people who had the data and the tools usually sat somewhere else, right? And I think at Strider, what I've come to appreciate is this is very integrated, right? And it's that kind of putting people together from both disciplines, subject matter expertise, area expertise, technical expertise, with data people and tool builders that generates that speed and scale.
So we from day one, it was all about fusion. So we just fused intelligence analysts and SMEs with engineers and data scientists, and we said automate them. That's been literally the goal from day one, is automate them. And I was the first analyst, and we hard coded it all. And our lead engineer couldn't read the output. I mean, he didn't speak Chinese, he didn't speak Russian, but I didn't speak Python. So this is what I'm saying is like this whole just in the last 6 years, how we started the company and the technology that was available to us to automate these processes, now with AI, that has fundamentally transformed, right? We don't have to do the hard coding across every little step of the manual analytical model. We can just train an AI agentic approach to this, and that's been a leap function gain in terms of not only outcomes, but the automation of that entire workflow.
And I'm very interested to get your perspective on how you see Team Red performing in this space, right? What do you see coming out of Chinese government organizations such as MSS or others, or even their companies, and how they're trying to gain advantage in the techno-economic competition with us?
Yeah, so look, there's one country in the entire world who has declared, okay, and you know, China loves to declare things, okay, that's declared that data is now a factor of production. So factors of production, go back to Adam Smith, right? Land, labor, capital. Those are your core economic inputs. China has now added data. They have built massive data collection apparatuses that aren't just for intelligence. They're just literally for amassing data. And this is, I think, the part that we all need to wake up to. Our country is literally being digitally mapped. We have collected databases in China that have mapped out the scientific community in different emerging technology fields. I view those as targeting packages, right? That's like how they basically map us out and begin to figure who is working on what companies are developing this next-gen technology. And fundamentally, I will also say too, when the U.S. government can see this. I mean, there are cases of new companies going to DoD, sharing with them what they have developed, only to be approached by a PRC investor 2 weeks later. I mean, this is what's, then that investment comes in, and that company is no longer going to be working with DoD. So we need to begin to view technology not just as a disruption to our day-to-day lives, but as a geostrategic input into this new battle that we're in. Because it's fundamentally, right now, commercial, right? That's where a lot of this focus is. But these new emerging technologies are truly dual use, right? There's a military application to them. And so that's where, you know, I would say China in particular is ahead of the curve in its thinking and philosophy around this and where the trends are going. I still think America and you know, we have an advantage. We are the first mover. So I'm always bullish and optimistic on what we can do. But I would say, like, we're behind the curve in rethinking and reimagining how these constructs should work in our system, and what the role of government and industry is in competing in that space.
Well, Greg, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. For those who are going to be around this afternoon, Greg and I are going to be presenting the results of a joint study that we just concluded that looks specifically at China's AGI build-out, particularly for data centers and algorithms. So I encourage you all to join us later this afternoon on the north stage for that.
Cool.
Greg, a real pleasure. Thank you.
I appreciate it.